Once upon a time, I found myself with a good friend of mine in a really bad situation. A situation that was dangerous and scary. And we're trying to figure out what we should do. Because you see, we were surrounded by a vicious enemy. An enemy we knew that if we were to be captured, they most likely would kill us. And we knew all we had to do was get back to our base, but we only had one problem. We didn't know where our enemy was. So as we sat there and waited and continued to try to locate where they would be coming from, it was almost as though time stood still, just started moving slowly. The trees were swaying, the leaves were falling down real slow and hitting the dry ground. The birds were singing, completely oblivious to the violence that was about to take place. Wasn't long after that to where my buddy turns around and he says, "Casey, I see him." My heart starts beating. So we did what any other two kindergarten-aged boys would do. We got up and we ran. We ran because we knew all we had to do was get back to our fort. Because, see, we had been training and preparing because we had been watching the greatest tactical show on earth, the A-Team. You see, the A-Team taught us how to build the umbrella bomb. Now listen, parents, if your kids are watching, now's the time for you to cover their eyes and their ears just for a short second. Because here's what you do with an umbrella bomb. You take an umbrella, you stick it upside down, and you fill it with gasoline, and all you need is a match. And we had it right there at our disposal. So we got back, and we waited. We waited for the enemy to come. Wait, my buddy says, "Case, here they come." So I take out my matches, and I strike the first match, and it doesn't light. So I switch it, and I grab another one, and I try to light it, and it breaks. And my buddy turns around and looks at me and goes, "Case, you got to hurry or we're going to die." And my fingers, they turn to flappers. And I light another one, and it lit. It was beautiful. I said, "Yes." I took that match, and I chucked it in the air, and it rotated in the air, and it hit its mark. Boom. Next you know, I'm laying flat on my back, looking up at the trees that moments before were providing me cover. But now they're engulfed in flames. So my buddy and I got up and we ran back to this house, grabbed a hose, and started to run back towards the place where it was, but we knew it was too late. This is what we saw. You see, we had started our first forest fire. We could hear the sirens coming down the road. The people were coming out of their houses. We knew we were in trouble. Little did I know, my dad had just finished speaking at a church. Him and my mom were on the way home, and they could see the smoke coming up in the sky. My dad says to my mom, "That looks about where we live." Little did he know, it was his son that started that fire. And you see, that's where my journey began as a preacher's kid. Now I know what you're saying. You're saying, "Oh, he's a preacher's kid. We've heard about you preacher's kids." But listen, not all preacher's kids are alike. In fact, some preacher's kids are straight-laced and super squared away. In fact, they know everything there is to know about the Bible. They don't chew, smoke, drink, listen to rap, definitely not Guns N' Roses. In fact, they throw 10% of their allowance in the offering plate and they will let you know they did so. You see, preachers' kids have a lot of similar traits of Pharisees. We're going to be talking about Pharisees today. Who are Pharisees, you might ask? Pharisees memorized the entire first 5 books of the Old Testament. They memorized them. They didn't have an app and listen to them. They didn't just read them. They memorized them. They also strictly followed all 613 laws God gave to Moses. And they often challenged Jesus in his ministry. They're always there trying to stump him. And they wouldn't hang out or associate with sinners. We're also going to talk about sinners today. Sinners would be someone who's a prostitute, someone who's a drunkard, or a cheater, uneducated, diseased, or deformed. Basically, sinners were anyone who didn't follow the laws of the Torah, as well as their own set of rules. We're also going to be talking about tax collectors. Tax collectors were Jews who worked for the Roman Empire. They collected taxes, tolls, and tariffs. They were despised and hated. Think about it like this. Think about a huge, powerful country coming here and taking us over. They rape, they pillage, they murder our friends and our family. And then they tax you for everything. You want to get on Interstate 80, they tax you. So what they did was they created a job, and your neighbor bids for that job, and that's collecting taxes. So the cool thing about that is the tax collectors would get to keep any money on top of that the country had already asked for, so they got rich off of your taxes. So you can see why they're despised. All those people we're going to talk about today in the book of Luke, chapter 15. Luke, as you see, was a Gentile. He was an outsider, an outcast, someone that the Pharisees would say he's uneducated. But yet, chapter 15 explains why Jesus hung out with bad people. We're going to start with the third story in chapter 15, and it starts like this. Tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and the teachers of the religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. They're stewing because Jesus is hanging around all these bad people. But they didn't go to Jesus. They just talked about him. You know, like some holy huddles do. They gossip instead of going right to the source. They just talked about him. So Jesus knew that the sinners would be sitting there. He knew that the prostitutes were around, and he knew the Pharisees were around listening too. So he says, guess what? I'm going to tell you another story. Jesus tells them this. A man had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. Nowadays, you wait till your parents pass away before you even ask to get any part of your estate, unless you want punched in the forehead, right? So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. He says, okay, I'll do this for you. So what happens? A few days later, he gets all of his stuff together. He packed all of his belongings, and he moved to a distant land. And there he wasted all his money on wild living. Think about it like us. We go to Vegas. You have all your money. You spend it on the best of the best clubs, get the VIP room, the best champagne, the best food. You're running around with crazy women and men, and you're getting the best cars, fast cars. But guess what happens? He ran out of money. And just about the time he ran out of money, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. There's a learning point to even this part right here. Why was he starving? What happened to his buddies that he was hanging out with when he was having a good time? Where'd they go? They went away because he didn't have any money. He wasn't the fun friend no more. So what's he do? He persuaded a local farmer to hire him. And the man sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him. But no one gave him anything. The Pharisees hearing this story right now, they're kind of like, yeah, this is what he gets. Yeah. And they also know it's messed up because this boy is a Jew and he's going and he has to feed pigs. They would know that's against the law. Why would they know that? Because in the book of Leviticus, it says, the pig has evenly split hooves, but does not chew the cud. So it is unclean. You may not eat the meat of these animals or even touch their carcasses. They are ceremonially unclean for you. Back to the boy. When he finally comes to his senses, he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food. They have enough food to spare. These are guys that aren't even in my dad's family. They're just servants. And here I am dying of hunger, looking at pig slop. So as he's sitting there, he says, I have an idea. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go home to my father and say, Father, listen, I've sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Please take me as your hired servant. Listen, I'll just work to get back in your graces. So what's he do? He gets up out of the pig slop. He doesn't stay there. He doesn't just talk about, well, I'm stuck in a bad way. I'm just going to stay here and talk about being stuck in a bad way. He gets up and he moves. He returned home to his father, and while he was still a long ways off, his father saw him coming. And his father is filled with love and compassion. And he ran to his son, and he embraced him, and he kissed him. His father saw him a long ways off, meaning what? His father was waiting for his son to come back. What's his son say to him as his father grips him? He says, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. He's repenting right now. He's saying, I'm not even worthy. I'm sorry, I was living like an idiot. And I'm sorry I've embarrassed you. I'm not even worthy to be your son. And what's his father say? He says, you know what? You're right. You're not. In fact, you smell like a pig. You come running back to me when you have nothing left. Do you realize how much work you're going to have to do to get back into my good graces? Really, that's not what the father said at all, right? Thank God. He says this to the servants, quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. Because you see, he didn't want him just to have a second-rate robe. He wants him to have the best robe. Not one that has holes in it. Not one that kind of covers his stink. He says he wants him to have the best robe. And he says, give him a ring. Give him the ring because it symbolizes that he's back under the authority with his father. And he's not a servant. So put some sandals on his feet. And while you're at it, guess what else he says? He says, kill the calf we have been fattening. Because see, we must celebrate with the feast. For this son of mine was dead. And now he's returned to life. You see, he was lost. But now he is found. So see, guess what happens? The party began. But meanwhile, while they're celebrating, the older son was in the fields working, earning his keep. doing what he's supposed to be doing. He returned home. He heard music and dancing in the house. And he asked one of the servants, hey, what's going on? What's up with this music? What's up with the dancing? I'm out here, so I know it's not about me. What's going on? The servant says this, your brother is back. And your father, he killed the fattened calf, and we're celebrating because he's safe and he's back. The older brother was angry. He's not going in that party. He's like, I'm not going in. His father even came out and begged him. He replied to his father, all these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to do. And in all that time, you never even gave me a young goat to celebrate with my friends. All I've done for you. It's kind of like us nowadays saying, hey, God, look at what all I've done for you. Like, hey, God, I go to church every Sunday and read my Bible. God, I feed the poor. God, I went to a Christian college. God, look at all the time and money I give the church. And you know, God, I'm not like some of the others, But God, know this. I didn't get a divorce. I don't look at porn. I don't do drugs. I don't cuss. And I didn't cheat on my spouse. So the son had a heart problem. The son is looking at the father saying, this is a quid pro quo relationship, right? Like, telling to God, I do for you, you're going to do for me, right? See, he knew his father, but he didn't really know his father. Let's keep on going to hear what the son says. Yet, when this son of yours, realize he's not even calling him his brother. And that's a Pharisee term. Pharisees wouldn't talk to anyone that was considered a sinner, their name or theirs. They wouldn't call them their brothers or sisters. So he says, this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes. You celebrate by killing the fatted calf. You celebrate. The whole town's people know what your son did. And you're going to celebrate him. He's with prostitutes. Aren't you embarrassed what he did? And you're going to allow him back under our house? You're not ashamed? You're not even ashamed. You're giving him the fattened calf. You're going to celebrate with them. You see, here's a problem with the proud and the self-righteous. They always feel like they're never rewarded as much as they ought to be. Sit on that. The proud and the self-righteous always feel like they are never rewarded as much as they ought to be. But listen to the amazing thing what the father says to him. This tells you how awesome and amazing the father is. He's still trying to get him, right? He's still trying to pull his audience into what he's saying. His father said to him, look, dear son. He's calling him out. You're my dear son. You have always stayed by me. And everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day. Because you see, your brother was dead. Your brother was going to hell. He was lost, but he's come back to life, and now he is found. We don't told what happens to the son at that point. We don't know if he was convicted and he went into the party I said, I'm out. I don't agree with what you're saying. I'm out of here. I'm frustrated. I'm mad at you. You don't value me. I'm going to go somewhere else and work. And while writing this message, I found myself going back and forth of, I do have some traits like that, the older son, and I have a lot of traits like the younger son, the lost son. And I want to ask you, which son do you relate to the most? Are you like the lost son? The lost son that says, hey, man, you don't know what I've done. I've done a lot of bad stuff. And I'm lost. And I just want to go back to my father. I want to try to figure this out. And I just don't understand really how I got here, but I want to get out. Because I know God's grace covers me. Because I'm sorry. I repented. I don't want the old me to be me anymore. And I just want to keep on moving to my Father. Or are you more like the older son? The older son, it kind of says, grace. Grace is good for you. I mean, you sinners, you definitely need grace. Especially that guy. You know, those guys, those people, those bad guys. They definitely need God's grace because I don't sin. Well, I mean, not like you sin. So you got to ask yourself, which one do you relate to the most? And I'll tell you how you know who you're going to relate to the most. Because the position of your heart will determine who you relate to the most. People, all we got to do is go out into our community. Let's go out into our community and be known as a gathering of people who love celebrating the return of those who were once lost, but now found. Like, let's let the world know, listen, we know you guys are messy. We know you're unchurched. We know you do things that make us uncomfortable, but let's celebrate them coming back. Let's not make it hard for them to come back. Let's be known as that. All I challenge you with is this. Go out and tell somebody about the amazing, reckless love that God has for them and that God had for you. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we know that every day is a gift. We know that right now we live in trying, crazy times. We also know that you're in control no matter what happens. We know that we're going to have days where we find ourselves in pig slop. And we've got to know and believe, Lord, that our hearts can be directed towards you, that we can go right back towards you, and that you're going to be there. You're going to wrap that nice robe around us, and you're going to take us back in, that we don't have to pay for it. We don't have to work for it. Yeah, but the old us wants to change, Lord, and convict us where we need to be convicted. Chip away those parts of us that keep us from you. Help us to keep our mouths shut where we cause damage. Help us to speak where we can offer hope. Help us to go to people directly and not gossip about them or grumble about them. Give us the courage to do so. We thank you for sending your son Jesus to die on a cross for us so that we may have everlasting life if we believe in you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.